And welcome to the Daily Space Weather. Lots of stuff to cover, and another video coming out later today on the electric view. Shout out Neil Thompson and crew. Looking at the sun at 193 angstroms, you see a very well-defined coronal hole there just north of the solar equator. It's very large, it's very well-defined, it's going to send a stiff solar wind our direction. In fact, it's already doing so. Let's look at the 304 angstroms view. We see most of the filaments have collapsed. And let's look at the dance in the southwest. There's a scenario in the southwest and southeast. And here's what's going on in the north. This is 7 hours and 15 minutes of your local yellow dwarf. X-ray flux is totally flatlined. And let's talk about funding the channel. Please do so if you are able, as we've got quite a bit of income to replace in order to make this full time. Links below the video to the PayPal, as well as the Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign. If you're in the market for CBDs, click the link below the video and check out the Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign, specifically formulated for our spaced out viewers. But mainly, support us via Patreon, patreon.com/smAsho. Please join at the $9.99 level, as the $1 a month level is going to evaporate on Halloween, at least as far as current plans go. And let's move on to other stuff, since YouTube pays us exactly nothing for these videos. You can see the phi angle's been shifting all around in the past 12 hours. We see a recent uptick in the solar wind density coming off the extremely low levels that we saw yesterday, up to 1.31, still solar minimum conditions. And a slow uptick in the solar wind speed, also now up to 350 kilometers per second. Solar minimum conditions in effect. Now, the magnetosphere is not looking as weak as it did yesterday, but it's looking super weak. And if you're wondering what's in my coffee cup today, it's strong, dark roast organic coffee, a splash of milk, cayenne pepper, cocoa powder, and coconut oil. Yes. Anyway, there's the 4 hours of magnetosphere movie. Not as weak as yesterday, but super weak. Here's the ground magnetic perturbations. Bringing it in a little closer to home here, and not seeing a lot of activity going on there. And we'll let that play through. And then we'll move on, as there's a ton of stuff to cover, and we'll blast through it as quickly as we can, keeping the content as dense as the minds of our viewers. 10.7 centimeter radial flux still at 66, below this orange line we've drawn in, showing you where solar minimum is. Goes magnetometer, there's the data from that. And next we'll look at the Gong 2, as we are in the North Pole oriented portion of the current sheet. As you can see here, this data of 2 hours and 9 minutes old. Let me make sure that's the newest. And we got a little newer data there. We moved it forward 1 hour for you folks. Anyway, there's the Gong 2 situation. This is the top view ecliptic plane field plot, showing us the polarity of the current sheet to the best of our ability to measure via many Earth-based magnetometers, stereo A out here and stereo B out here. We do see some suspended plasma rolling in here, although it looks like it's collapsing. So that area right in between stereo A and the Earth is something to watch, but I don't really see any activity. Stay tuned to the end. We'll show you a bonus feature. We don't see any surface charging hazards or charging hazards, period. KP is at 2. That's the estimated planetary K index. We see an electron flux dip, something that we typically see associated with coronal hole wind streams. So it looks like the one from the south coronal hole is now reaching the Earth, and it's looking pretty weak and diffuse so far. Something to watch throughout the day, the solar wind, as it may be upticking. And there are the relativistic electrons at pretty low levels right now. Here's the ionosphere movie, 6 hours of the ionosphere. It's looking a little bit anomalous, mainly on the nighttime side. We see some oddities in the Yeah, it's looking a little odd on the nighttime side and a little discharge on the daytime side. Little bit anomalous there. Let's pull up the latest image and move on. And there's the latest image. There's the latest image at 7:15 UT, which is about when we're making the video. Doing it a little early, as we typically do on Sundays. Let's do the earthquake rundown. The last 24 hours included. Nearly 24 hours ago, we see a 58, a 4.5 at a deep depth at Peru, as the magnitude 7 and 8 earthquake drought continues, folks. Another deep quake Western South America would be my choice for seeing the next 7 magnitude quake come in, as they've been seeing deep quakes there for months. So 5.3 at Niue is next on the list. We saw one there yesterday also. That located somewhere east of Fiji. Next on the list, we're only covering 4+ magnitudes here. We see a 4.7 at Japan, followed by a 4.7 back at Niue. Niue, I think it's pronounced. 4.2 at Sirocco Island, Mexico, off of Baja California there. Next, coming in at 11 UTC yesterday, we see a 4.9 off the coast of northern Sumatra, near the Bay of Bengal. How about a 5.2 at the Philippines, followed by a 5.3 at Tonga near noontime Universal Time. 5.2 at the Northern Mariana Islands, that one at 94 kilometers depth. We've been seeing quakes every day or two at that location. 4.6 at Papua New Guinea, a 5.2 at East Timor, a 5.0 at Tonga, a 4.6 at the South Shetland Islands, which are way down there by Antarctica. I think another quake just came in there as we were talking. Here's a 4.3 looking like it's on the island of New Zealand. Let's zoom in. Take a look at the location of that. Near Lake Rotoiti. Nice. Please leave a comment if you felt that quake. And let's get back to the list before I have a stroke. Here's a 4.2 at Panama. This 4.3 at Guatemala is at depth. Shout out Central America for a larger quake at the surface. 4.3 at 174 kilometers depth. Haven't seen a deep quake there for a while. And a 5.0 at the South Sandwich Islands is next. This one coming in at 1932. Next is a 4.8 at Papua New Guinea. Largest quake of the past 24, I believe, is this 5.7 near Fiji. Next is a 4.7 in Indonesia, 4.3 at Japan, 4.9 at Tonga, 5.0 at Tonga, 4.4 at Japan, and a 4.4 in Indonesia. This one coming in about 15 minutes before we started recording the video. If you are in an earthquake-prone zone, please have a plan, as this earthquake drought is very lengthy, and earthquake droughts end in earthquake. So be an asset, not a liability, in the event of a disaster. Know which buildings might be falling down if you're going to evacuate yours, for instance. Even that is considered prepping. Even if you don't have a bug-out bag, knowing which building facades may fall on your head is prepping. And if you're stuck and you're wondering when the cavalry is going to arrive, it's probably because you're the cavalry. Here's the windy.com pressure map, and we're going to let this advance about 24 hours and then move on, as anomalous low pressure systems can signal earthquakes. And there's where things will be about 24 hours from when we made the video. Next, the volcano rundown, as we saw an uptick in small earthquakes there, but still, again, magnitude 7 and 8 earthquake drought continues. Mount Abico is on the list and producing an 11,000-foot ash plume. Mount Aso, 5,000-foot plume there. Sakurajima, back on the list, erupted, produced a 7,000-foot ash plume. Mount Ibu, explosive activity continues, and it producing a 6,000-foot ash plume. Krakatoa, discrete eruption with a 2,000-foot ash plume. Don't fly a glider over Krakatoa. It could suddenly explode and create new real estate. You may not want to be the first one to find out about it. Dakono exploding, 7,000-foot plume there. Pavlov, not to be confused with Pavlov's dogs, that's located on the Alaskan Peninsula, and some explosion signals from its infrasound network. So they've upgraded the advisory to yellow in that location on the Alaskan Peninsula. Popocatépetl exploding, 21,000-foot plume there. Sabancaya, sporadic puffs, and continuous emissions from Copihu. Please do not pole vault Copihu. Although if you want to pole vault Copihu or any other volcanoes, we've left links to Pacer 1 vaulting poles, as we did have a viewer who said he was going to go to South America and pole vault some volcanic calderas. So there's some beginner to intermediate poles there. I have no idea how to pick the right pole vaulting pole. Please leave a comment if you know. And again, don't fly a glider over a volcano. This guy was able to kill himself without even being near a volcano, doing it in Schuylkill County, yes. Somebody killed himself, we're hoping accidentally, just yesterday in Pennsylvania, near a short distance from Heisler's Dairy Bar, a popular location in Walker Township, I guess. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. And there's where it'll be in 1 week. Do you know where stuff is above your head? Well, check out in-the-sky.org if you want to make yourself a sky map. You can even automate it. Check it out. If you're interested in knowing when Deneb will set, my favorite cosmic ray point source, in-the-sky.org. Also, check out lightningmaps.org the next time you hear thunder. It could save your bacon. Or you could figure out how to cook your bacon using a lightning rod. Please leave recipes as comments below the video. Here's the Weather Underground radar animation, the U.S. Doppler radar, and we see snow coming down in Montana, Idaho, Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado once again. And some heavy storms in the intermediate southeast. And it looks like they're creeping my way, folks. Here's the water vapor map. And we're going to zoom in on this convergence zone over South Carolina here as we see frigid air dipping deep into the southeast, all the way down into New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Nevada. Cold, cold air injected from Canada. Let's zoom in. And there's that area over the Four Corners. Cold air blasting down as the jet stream dips way down. We're going to see massively anomalous temperatures coming in. On the cold side, folks, on the cold side. And here's this low pressure zone that crossed Florida here. It's getting beaten up by a bunch of dry air. And perhaps there's some good surfing off the coast of North and South Carolina right now. Not exactly sure. But there's that zone. Let's move on to more stuff, such as the jet streams of the eastern world. Ever heard of meridional jet stream flow? How about double and tripled up jet streams? Anyway, there's the eastern world. Here's the western world's jet streams. And it's going to be some cold temperatures coming in the southwest all the way down through Mexico. And we've graduated to the That Is Censored and That Is a Sinkhole section, where we talk about whatever we want. Are you aware the Fed is lying to us? Are you aware that the Fed has been injecting cheap money into the system, benefiting major corporation stock investments, and not you? Now, if your money is primarily invested in cash, the current rate of inflation has got to be higher than 3%. The Fed has already restarted quantitative easing. Let me read a quote. In no sense is this QE. Okay, let's talk about QE for a minute. When the Fed expands its balance sheet, and it prints money from thin air and injects it into the banking system so banks can loan it out and make profits, and so that companies like Google, Apple, Facebook, and Twitter can buy their junk stock instead of paying people in cash, because you can pay people in stock, and, well, what that does is overinflate the stock market. And anyway, read the article from Zero Hedge if you don't understand the Fed's creation of bomb and bust cycles. End the Federal Reserve as a market should control interest rates, not a cartel of privately owned banks. If you think the Federal Reserve is the government, think again. And I don't know what else to tell you. Leave a comment. We'll try not to laugh too hard. Let's talk about Brexit. Now, Boris Johnson here has sent an unsigned letter for an extension on the EU Brexit deal. As in England, they don't believe in a referendum vote. They just vote, and then they don't exit the communist organization of the EU, which is collapsing under its own weight as it tries to siphon all the money out of profitable countries like Germany and the UK. And yeah, I'm not going to get any farther into it. That's the lead story on CNBC.com, by the way. Let's look at a couple market issues here. Here's the one-year chart of Bitcoin. Not looking particularly healthy to me. Let's do the 1 year of Ethereum, and we're using the Coinbase exchange here because that's where I have an account. These exchanges are notorious for listing very questionable looking volume data. So that's the main thing that you're going to see different here. The price won't be too different. As there are so many exchanges for cryptocurrency, it's a mess. Anyway, there's the 1 year of Ethereum. Also not looking particularly healthy from my perspective. Oil is currently at $53.70 per barrel. Gold is at $14.93. And silver is all the way down to $17.57. It almost hit 20 bucks an ounce. There's the 1 year chart of silver. And we were telling our viewers to buy it back here when it was $14 an ounce as Christmas presents last year. And at these levels, I am still interested in buying Christmas presents made out of silver. Recommend silver coins. Anyway, here's the gold chart. Always looking a little bit differently than silver does. And silver is often the lagging indicator, and it's often a better buy. Of course, you can buy it in smaller quantities also. And there's the rest of the market stuff. Let's move on here as there's still plenty of stuff to cover. Did you watch our movie reviews? Well, we reviewed The Seventh Sign, so check that out if you haven't seen our older videos. We've got hundreds of them. And at the end, we talk about science stories all the time. There's the review from yesterday, featuring also one of the scariest movies you'll ever see, Face Off, starring Nick Cage and John Travolta. One of the worst movies you'll ever see. And you want to hear about some nonsense from critics? This horrific disaster of a film gets a 92% certified fresh on the tomato meter. Are you kidding me? The audience score 82%? Are you out of your mind? This movie is terrible. It's so bad you should watch it for Halloween, as it will scare you how stupid people can be. Never underestimate human stupidity, folks. Let's talk about some human smartidity, folks. Do you know how to make your own electrolyte beverages? Well, what you want to do is use fresh juice, because there's all kinds of quality vitamins and minerals in the fresh juice, and you want to add electrolytes to it. We've left links to this article also. Make your own homemade electrolyte beverage. Don't buy that Gatorade crap. It's got a bunch of nonsense in it that you don't want to be drinking. So check that out. It's going to hook you up with all the electrolytes you need. And I can never remember the list. It includes sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, magnesium, bicarbonate, phosphate, and sulfate. Make your own electrolyte beverages, folks. It's a good time, especially if you're athletic. Now, speaking of being athletic, were you aware that potato is as effective as carbohydrate gels? Now, this test was done on a bunch of cyclists, and it had to be pretty serious cyclists. Otherwise, they wouldn't qualify for the test. They had to actually qualify to participate. And guess what? They found no significant difference between the use of energy gels and simple potato flakes. So this could be a breakthrough, perhaps, and it's certainly a cheaper way to be able to, keep your carbs up during high-intensity athletic performances. Here's a quote: "Potatoes are a promising alternative for athletes because they represent a cost-effective, nutrient-dense, and whole food source of carbohydrates." The researchers reported on October 17th in the Journal of Applied Physiology. Furthermore, they serve as a savory race fuel option when compared to the high sweetness of carbohydrate gels. Now, carbohydrate gels, that high sweetness can make you feel sick. And yeah, so that's another benefit because of the flavor profile. In other words, you don't want to drink something with too high of a Brix ratio, meaning the amount of sugar in an aqueous solution, because it will upset your stomach, and that will prevent absorption of nutrients. And there you go. GI symptoms were lower than previous studies, indicating that both carbohydrate conditions were well tolerated by the majority of the study cyclists. So links to this article also below the video. Do you follow me on Instagram? Are you aware that I did a bike ride once again at 26 times the speed of sound? There's the average. I didn't alter this, folks. There's the average moving time. Yeah, I went 977 miles in 2 minutes and 50 seconds, giving me an average speed of 20,695 miles per hour. Now, apparently, Ride with GPS is only able to measure up to 15,000 miles per hour, but there's the math. Apparently, I went from Missouri back to Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania in a matter of less than 3 minutes. So follow me on Instagram to see some behind-the-scenes stuff and some delightful images like this, which you may not otherwise see. Hey, look, it's doing some radio astronomy, folks. Check it out. Solar spectra. And moving on to thank the Smash team and patrons and everybody else who's viewing the video. Stay tuned for a bonus feature. So if you want to be able to forecast sunspots formation before they're actually named, before they're fully formed, the way to do it is with the colorized magnetogram. So here we are looking at 7 hours and 15 minutes of the magnetic environment, and we don't see anything resembling magnetic organization there, folks. There's the whole disk. There are the timestamps. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to stare at the sun. And when you're staring at the sun, don't drink it. If you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Just don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.